Hey there, and thank you for joining us today here at Rentman. My name is Tim. I am the North American Operations Manager here at Rentman, and today we'll be taking a closer look at the equipment scheduling and quoting features that can be found in the system. Now, before we start off, if you're interested in having a personal walkthrough of the system, if you would like to talk to us in person, if you maybe have some more specific questions about the system, please make sure to reach out to us. You can find our contact details in the description of this video. You can also visit us by heading over to rentman.io, and you can also take a closer look at our YouTube channel to find our information right there. Now, before we get started, let's talk about what Rentman actually is. So what we have built here at Rentman is essentially a cloud-based, all-in-one resource management and quoting platform for the event production and production industry and any other industry that is in some way related to it. Now, who is this for? Well, if you have trouble scheduling your staff, keeping track of inventory, creating professional estimates, then Rentman really is the right solution to do all these things effectively from a single place. We're cloud-based, which means you can use it on multiple devices from wherever you are. And we've really built this platform to be an all-in-one solution for whatever you're looking for. Now, in this specific part of Rentman today, as I mentioned, we'll be taking a closer look at equipment scheduling, quoting, and invoicing. Now, this video is part of a video series. If you're looking to learn more about other parts of the system, say crew scheduling or other parts, simply visit our YouTube channel and you will be able to find the information right there. Now, as Rentman has a modular approach these days, you're actually able to pick and choose what exact feature is right for you. Some people are interested in equipment scheduling and quoting, some people are only interested in tracking their inventory, and some are simply interested in scheduling their staff. All of these things are possible in the system, but if you're interested in any of these other videos, you can simply find them on our YouTube channel. All right, and we're going to jump right into the system. And the first thing that we can see here is our projects overview. Now, the projects overview in Rentman is essentially any present, past, or future project that you guys have happening in the system that you have entered in there. But before we start actually building out a project and scheduling our equipment, we'll start off by taking a closer look at the different databases that we have in Rentman. Now, you can find those on the left side here if you open up your menu button. And then right here, you have your equipment database, contacts, and crew members. Now, in equipment, that's where you would enter, upload, and manage all of the different inventory items that you own. Under contacts, that's where you would manage your clients, your locations, your venues, whatever that might be. And then under crew members, you will manage anyone that is involved in your Rentman account, their logins, and all the information related to that. Now, as the focus for today is on equipment scheduling, that's what we'll be taking a look at. So we're going to head over here, select equipment, and then we can already have a closer look at our equipment database right here. Now, as you can see on the right side, we have our equipment listed, and on the left side, we have a folder structure. Now, this folder structure is completely customizable, which means the example that you're seeing here can be completely adjusted in your own Rentman account. Folders can be created. As you can see, subfolders can be created, and you can completely adjust this by simply heading up here, clicking on this little gear button, and then you can directly choose how you would like to structure your own folder structure. Now, to start things off, we're going to take a closer look at one of the items that we have in here, and we're going to start with the first item that we can see in here, which is our Martin Atomic. Now, to open up this item and take a closer look at the details, we simply have to select it and edit it, or simply double-click on it, which is what I'm going to do right now. And once I have double clicked on it, I can take a closer look at all the information associated with this item. Now, we're starting off in the data tab right here. Now, in the data tab, that's where we have all the basic information about this item. We have the name that we can directly take a closer look at. We can see in which folder it is, where it's located in the warehouse. So all these things can be completely adjusted. And then we also have our financial information down here. Just please be aware that this financial information might be more limited in your Rentman account. This very much depends if you're using the quoting and invoicing part of the software. If you're not using it, then this information here will be a lot more limited. Yeah. Further down here, you can enter the properties for this item. You can associate tasks, notes, and files, all these good things. And then we can also take a closer look at our item in terms of the stock levels and the serial numbers. Now, in Rentman, we differentiate between two different types of items in general. You can work with bulk items, or you can work with serialized items, and you can choose whatever each item is over here. So bulk item, that's essentially something that is more of a low value item, something that doesn't need to be tracked individually. An example I like to give here are cables. Most cables that we work with in this industry are not super high value, which means there you don't need to track where each individual item went. Whereas with more high value items, that's where you can directly come in here, choose individual instead, and then instead of entering a number and saying, hey, listen, I have 25 or 30 cables, and you don't really care which one goes out, if you want to track it individually, you would choose individual right here. Select that. And then what really matters is how many serial numbers you've added in here. So in the serial numbers tab, if you would have serialized this item, it would list all of the different variations of the strobe that you have. So, serial number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then depending on the number of serial numbers listed right here, that's how Rentman knows how many of these strobes you actually own or how many of these items that you actually own. Yeah. So again, important to understand here the difference between bulk equipment and serialized equipment. Now there's a few more things we can take a closer look at here, one of them being accessories. Accessories can be adjusted or can be added, to every item in Rentman. These are items that you would frequently rent out together, but not always. So for example, if you're renting out a speaker with some additional equipment, or if you're renting out a strobe with some gear from time to time, you can simply add those accessories right here. And whenever this item is then booked on a project, so whenever this strobe is booked on a project, Rentman will open up a little pop-up and say, hey, listen, wouldn't you want to take this other item as well? Yeah, so an easy way for you to prevent forgetting equipment. Now, one more information that I want to provide here is the Alternatives tab. Now, Alternatives in Rentman allow you to replace equipment in case you don't have it available, in case there is a viable alternative. So if you associate some alternatives with a strobe here, you plan the strobe on a project, the strobe isn't available for this particular project at the time, you could then directly take a closer look at these alternatives in a project setting and directly replace the item that you don't have with a viable alternative. Yeah. Now, if you're wondering, how can I even get all of my information into the system? Well, Rentman allows two processes here, and we can take a closer look at this if we go back to our equipment tab right here. Now, the first way, if you're really starting to look from scratch, if I head right up here, is by clicking on Add Equipment. The process here is that you would manually add all of your equipment items into the system piece by piece. Now, if that sounds a little bit too much for you, and you maybe already have a spreadsheet that lists all of your equipment, the other option would be to simply head right over here, click on the three-dot button, and then from here you can directly choose to import. Now, importing equipment into Rentman is possible for all of your different databases, so it's not just limited to importing equipment. You can also import your contacts, and you can also import your crew members right into the system to save yourself some time when you're doing the initial setup of the system. Now, if I select import right here, I can directly see that this is now going to guide me through the process. First, I can choose if I would like to import serial numbers, what kind of import we're looking at, and then this little import wizard will guide you through the process. You can upload your file, map the different columns with the information on Rentman, and make sure that the upload is successful. Yeah. Ending this right here. Now, one more option that we have in this equipment overview that I briefly want to bring up is the ability for you to directly check the availability of equipment. Now, let's say you get a call on a certain day. One of your clients would like to check if some equipment is available to pick up the week after or maybe the day after. And in this case, you don't need to go into a project and create a project to check if something is available. There's two ways this can be done. Now, the easiest way really is up here where we have this little half moon button. Simply click on that, and this is our little quick availability check. So the only thing you really have to do here is come in, type in the name of the equipment that you would like to check the availability of. Let's type something in, just a random item. I can check the item that I would like to check the availability of, select the period of time where I would like to check the availability, and then Rentman will immediately supply me with information if this unit is available or not during the given time. Yeah, so that is your quick availability check. This might be a little bit too limiting because you can only see the availability of a single item at the same time. Now, if you would like to see this in more detail, what you can also do is just use the equipment overview that we're already looking at here. And then it's as easy as selecting one or multiple items. Let's, for example, say we would like to check the availability for our strobe and blacklight gun. I simply select the items. Then once I've selected them, I do see this little button up here that says Open Timeline. Now, the only thing I got to do now is select Open Timeline, and then Rentman will directly supply me with information about both of these items down here and their respective availability. Now, let's take a closer look at the availability of my blacklight gun. If I open this up, on the left side here, I can directly see two availability bars that we have in here. Now, why does Rentman display two bars here? Well, Rentman has two layers of availability calculation. Now, the first layer is if you plan an item, whatever it is, on a project, and the project is not yet confirmed yet, only the first bar will be reduced accordingly. This is what we call our planned availability. You plan an item on a project, the project is not yet confirmed, but you would still like to see how many items you've planned across multiple projects that are not confirmed yet. Once a project is confirmed, the item is reserved on this project, and accordingly, the second bar will be reduced. So the warehouse stock is essentially your reserved or physical availability. Yeah? So as a summary, plan your equipment on a project. If it's not confirmed, only the first bar will be reduced. If you've planned your equipment on a project and it has been confirmed already, then the second bar will be reduced accordingly as well. Now, to build on this, let's take a closer look at our strobe down here. If we expand this, this will show us our availability, and interestingly enough, it also directly shows us our project down here that this equipment item is planned on Friday the 24th, Saturday the 25th, and Sunday the 26th. So this availability timeline down here really gives you all the details that you need for checking availability. It shows you your planned availability, your physical availability, and all other projects that this equipment item might already be planned on during this time. Now, to start things off, we're going to take a closer look at one of the items that we have in here, and we're going to start with the first item that we can see in here, which is our Martin Atomic. Now, to open up this item and take a closer look at the details, we simply have to select it and edit it, or simply double-click on it, which is what I'm going to do right now. And once I have double-clicked on it, I can take a closer look at all the information associated with this item. Now, we're starting off in the Data tab right here. Now, in the Data tab, that's where we have all the basic information about this item. We have the name that we can directly take a closer look at. We can see in which folder it is, where it's located in the warehouse, so all these things can be completely adjusted. And then we also have our financial information down here. Just please be aware that this financial information might be more limited in your RentMan account. This very much depends if you're using the quoting and invoicing part of the software. If you're not using it, then this information here will be a lot more limited. Yeah. Further down here, you can enter the properties for this item. You can associate tasks, notes, and files, all these good things. And then we can also take a closer look at our item in terms of the stock levels and the serial numbers. Now, in RentMan, we differentiate between two different types of items in general. You can work with bulk items, or you can work with serialized items, and you can choose whatever each item is over here. So bulk item, that's essentially something that is more of a low value item, something that doesn't need to be tracked individually. An example I like to give here are cables. Most cables that we work with in this industry are not super high value, which means there you don't need to track where each individual item went. Whereas with more high value items, that's where you can directly come in here, choose individual instead, and then instead of entering a number and saying, hey, listen, I have 25 or 30 cables, and you don't really care which one goes out, if you want to track it individually, you would choose individual right here. Select that. And then what really matters is how many serial numbers you've added in here. So in the serial numbers tab, if you would have serialized this item, it would list all of the different variations of the strobe that you have. So, serial number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then depending on the number of serial numbers listed right here, that's how RentMan knows how many of these strobes you actually own, or how many of these items that you actually own. Yeah. So again, important to understand here the difference between bulk equipment and serialized equipment. Now, there's a few more things we can take a closer look at here, one of them being accessories. Accessories can be adjusted, or can be added, to every item in RentMan. These are items that you would frequently rent out together, but not always. So, for example, if you're renting out a speaker with some additional equipment, or if you're renting out a strobe with some gear from time to time, you can simply add those accessories right here. And whenever this item is then booked on a project, so whenever this strobe is booked on a project, RentMan will open up a little pop-up and say, hey, listen, wouldn't you want to take this other item as well? Yeah, so an easy way for you to prevent forgetting equipment. Now, one more information that I want to provide here is the Alternatives tab. Now, Alternatives in RentMan allow you to replace equipment in case you don't have it available, in case there is a viable alternative. So if you associate some alternatives with a strobe here, you plan a strobe on a project, the strobe isn't available for this particular project at the time, you could then directly take a closer look at these alternatives in a project setting and directly replace the item that you don't have with a viable alternative. Yeah. Now, if you're wondering, how can I even get all of my information into the system? Well, RentMan allows two processes here, and we can take a closer look at this if we go back to our Equipment tab right here. Now, the first way, if you're really starting to look from scratch, if I head right up here, is by clicking on Add Equipment. The process here is that you would manually add all of your equipment items into the system piece by piece. Now, if that sounds a little bit too much for you and you maybe already have a spreadsheet that lists all of your equipment, the other option would be to simply head right over here, click on the three-dot button, and then from here you can directly choose to import. Now, importing equipment into RentMan is possible for all of your different databases, so it's not just limited to importing equipment. You can also import your contacts, and you can also import your crew members right into the system to save yourself some time when you're doing the initial setup of the system. Now, if I select import right here, I can directly see that this is now going to guide me through the process. First, I can choose if I would like to import serial numbers, what kind of import we're looking at, and then this little import wizard will guide you through the process. You can upload your file, map the different columns with the information in RentMan, and make sure that the upload is successful. Yeah. Ending this right here. Now, one more option that we have in this equipment overview that I briefly want to bring up is the ability for you to directly check the availability of equipment. Now, let's say you get a call on a certain day. One of your clients would like to check if some equipment is available to pick up the week after or maybe the day after. And in this case, you don't need to go into a project and create a project to check if something is available. There's two ways this can be done. Now, the easiest way really is up here where we have this little half moon button. Simply click on that, and this is our little quick availability check. So the only thing you really have to do here is come in, type in the name of the equipment that you would like to check the availability of. Let's type something in, just a random item. I can check the item that I would like to check the availability of, select the period of time where I would like to check the availability, and then RentMan will immediately supply me with information if this unit is available or not during the given time. Yeah, so that's your quick availability check. This might be a little bit too limiting because you can only see the availability of a single item at the same time. Now, if you would like to see this in more detail, what you can also do is just use the equipment overview that we're already looking at here. And then it's as easy as selecting one or multiple items. Let's, for example, say we would like to check the availability for a strobe and blacklight gun. I simply select the items. Then once I've selected them, I do see this little button up here that says Open Timeline. Now, the only thing I got to do now is select Open Timeline, and then RentMan will directly supply me with information about both of these items down here and their respective availability. Now, let's take a closer look at the availability of my blacklight gun. If I open this up, on the left side here, I can directly see two availability bars that we have in here. Now, why does RentMan display two bars here? Well, RentMan has two layers of availability calculation. Now, the first layer is if you plan an item, whatever it is, on a project, and the project is not yet confirmed yet, only the first bar will be reduced accordingly. This is what we call our planned availability. You plan an item on a project, the project is not yet confirmed, but you would still like to see how many items you've planned across multiple projects that are not confirmed yet. Once a project is confirmed, the item is reserved on this project, and accordingly, the second bar will be reduced. So the warehouse stock is essentially your reserved or physical availability. Yeah? So as a summary, plan your equipment on a project. If it's not confirmed, only the first bar will be reduced. If you've planned your equipment on a project and it has been confirmed already, then the second bar will be reduced accordingly as well. Now, to build on this, let's take a closer look at our strobe down here. If we expand this, this will show us our availability, and interestingly enough, it also directly shows us our project down here that this equipment item is planned on Friday the 24th, Saturday the 25th, and Sunday the 26th. So this availability timeline down here really gives you all the details that you need for checking availability. It shows you your planned availability, your physical availability, and all other projects that this equipment item might already be planned on during this time. Now that we have covered checking availability of your equipment in RentMan from the equipment module, I want to take a brief step back and just take a look at the general overview that we can have right here in the equipment module. Now, one of the things that I'm going to do is just unselect those two items, close the availability timeline, and then talk a little bit more about how this view can be further customized. I did already talk about the folder structure, which can be adjusted right over here. But let's, for example, say you don't really like the overview right here. Some of this information is not relevant to you. You don't really need to see some of this. So for example, if I now am thinking that, hey, I don't really need to see if each of these items has an accessory, I'm very much able to just go here, click on the three-dot button of the respective column, and then simply choose what I want to do with it. Now, first of all, I can sort, I can group, I can adjust the width just like you would be used from any other spreadsheet software, but I can also, for example, choose if I would like to hide a specific column or add additional columns by clicking on Edit Columns. Now, if you're missing information, select Edit Columns, add whatever column you want and whatever piece of information you want in here. But if you're, for example, thinking, hey, listen, I don't really need to see, what accessories I have in this view right here, It's as easy as going right here, clicking on hide column and cleaning up this overview just a little bit more. Now, additional information on each specific item can also be accessed by hovering over the item, and we can see this details button already popping up. If I select details, it will directly open up the sidebar right here, which can give me a little bit more information about the item that I've just selected. So if I go here and I select the strobe that we were working with earlier, I can directly see, if I open up the details bar again, that now I can see an image of my strobe, and if I have selected information, if I've added information to it, I can directly see suppliers. Maybe I've tagged my item to find it a little bit easier. I can see tasks that I've assigned to it. I can see nodes that I've maybe assigned to my equipment if there's anything specific that I want to relate to it. And obviously you can also attach files to your equipment that might be an image like the one that we're seeing up here, but it might also be other files that might be relevant for your operations. Now, as we took a step back, I also want to briefly talk about the ability to package equipment in Rentman. So far what we have done, we have only taken a quick look at the individual items that we have in Rentman. However, we do also offer the ability for you to package your equipment. And packaging equipment in Rentman is done by combining equipment in what we call kits and cases. And I briefly want to start off by taking a closer look at a DJ kit that we have down here. Now, taking a look at this DJ kit, if we open this item up, no, doesn't want to. Let's go here. There we go. We've opened up the item, and what we can see right here is that as a type, we've chosen a kit. Now, an individual item, as I said, you can have these individual items as bulk equipment or as serialized equipment. If I now go ahead and combine equipment in a kit, I can directly go up here and choose what the content is. Now, the important information about a kit is that you can put items into a kit, and then these items can be rented out together in this kit form, but each individual item can still be rented out separately as well. Yeah? And that's what differentiates it from a case. If I'm setting up a case, which is not what we're looking at right now, we're looking at a kit, then once you add items into a case, they can only be rented out together. The best example I can give for a case is, for example, an amp rack. If you take your amps, you bolt them into the rack, you typically don't really rent them out separately anymore. So you take your individual items, you put them into the case, you combine it together, and then these items can only be rented out in case form in the future. So for now, this is it with regards to the equipment module. We've taken a closer look at how to set up your equipment, how to set up your overviews, how to pretty much do everything else. If you are missing anything here, if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to reach out to us. But for now, what we're going to do is we're actually going to go ahead and start planning our equipment on a project. And to do that, we're going to head right over here, select our menu bar, and then select the project view right here. And then this project view right here essentially shows you, as I had mentioned earlier, what projects are happening at which point in time. Now I can customize this further by going up here and clicking on the little time schedule, and then here I can choose, if I want to see my projects next week, next month, in any given quarter. And then apart from being able to customize the timing right here, what I can also do is choose how I would like to see my information. Now, right now, how we're looking at our projects, that's what we call list view. If you're coming from a background of Google Calendar, or if maybe you used any other system before, you might be more familiar with a calendar view, and it's very easy to change that by just going up here, clicking in the top right at view, and then, for example, choosing that, hey, I actually want my view to be a calendar. So then you would see your project in a calendar view. If I go back here to August, that's probably going to be a little bit more populated than in September. And then if one of your users is maybe into Gantt charts, then the respective user, they could also just go here and, for example, go with the timeline. So again, I'm looking at next week here. Let's maybe go to the past month. And then we're going to see, well, we're actually not going to see that, but let's maybe go for the past year. We're going to see a few more projects popping up right here if we scroll a little bit further to the right side right here. So it's a nice view to just see which projects are actually happening at the same time. Yeah, so this can be changed in the view right here. Now let's talk about starting a new project. Now in Rentman, we have three main ways this can be accomplished. Now the easiest way really is to take a look at existing projects right here. For example, our demo day or maybe our install job. And then we can simply pick a job, or if we're not seeing it, we can also, of course, search for projects. So we just pick that job. And once we have done that, with this little menu bar opening up here, we also have some information on the right side here about the project, so we don't actually need to open it up to see all the information, which is quite convenient. But what we want to do here now is start a new job, and we can just go here, click on the three-dot button, and simply duplicate the whole thing. So instead of having to start from scratch every time, you can simply look for older projects. Maybe the one that you had last year is happening again. You simply duplicate it, and again, you won't have to start from scratch. You can really build on the information that you already have. Yeah? So that's one way of starting a project. If that doesn't really apply to you, then the other ways of starting a project are by going up here in the top right corner, clicking on Add Project. And then from here, we have two main ways we can start a job. The easiest one here would be to just go with blank project. And as the name already says, that's simply a project with no pre-entered information. You're starting from scratch. And then the other option that we have right here are what we call project templates in Rentman. Now, project templates are essentially templates that your company set up, that you guys can set up. And into each template, you can pre-enter what kind of information you would want to have in there. Now, why would you want to set them up? Well, if you work frequently with a specific client, if you work frequently on a specific project, and again, you don't want to have to enter these every single time, you can just set up templates, pre-enter equipment, labor, notes, tasks, anything that is really needed. And whenever you choose that template, all that information will already be pre-entered into the project. Yeah. And that's also one thing that we're going to be using today, as we don't have time to start a project from scratch. I'm actually going to go with our average 2-day production down here. So I'm going to choose that option. I can already preview some of the information that is pre-entered into this project to just double check, hey, is this actually the one that I want to work with? And then I'm just going to choose a new start date, and let's just go ahead and say that our project is going to happen in October on the 20th. Yeah. So I'm going to select that, jump right in, and now we've started our project. And then this is the basic overview that we get in any project when we enter into Rentman. Now, we start things off in Rentman by entering some basic information in the General tab. In the time schedule, we define what's happening when. Under equipment, we can define our gear. Under crew and transport, in this case, we can define what kind of labor is required. Under additional costs, any other costing that doesn't fit into equipment or crew, you can add in there. And then if you've chosen the quoting package of Rentman, you will also have the ability to take a look at the financial option right here, where you can quote, invoice, and just have a general look at your profitability of the project. Now, we can see right here in the General tab where we're starting off is we can give our project a name. I'm going to stick with Music Festival here. I can choose which status this project has now. In the beginning, your project starts out as a concept, and then depending on the stages that the project is in, it will either be pending, confirmed, and then later on, it will be packed, on location, and returned. Now, as I had mentioned earlier on in this video, there are different package options that we have with Rentman. Again, today we're just looking at equipment scheduling and at quoting. So for example, if you had the quoting feature enabled in Rentman, your project would start out as a concept. From there, you would send your quote, it will switch to pending. And once your client has digitally signed a quote, if you're looking to do that, it will directly switch to confirmed. If you have not chosen the quoting package, then quite obviously this workflow is not available. So you would have to change the status manually right here as well to what's happening. Yeah. Now, external reference, you can, for example, put a purchase order number in here. You can color code your projects quite easily if you want to have a more colorful overview in your calendar. And then, of course, you can choose the account manager for each project to make sure that everybody knows who's responsible for this specific job. Yeah? Moving on further down here, you can define a client and a location. So who are we working for and where are we working at? These two might be the same. These two might differ, which is why we can choose this right here. So for example, in this case, let's just say your client in this case is Rentman. You're going to work with us. So I'm just going to go here, type in our name, and you can directly see if this client has been entered into your contact database, then you can directly pick them from the dropdown right here. If it is a new client, not a problem. Just go right up here to the 3-dot button and enter that new client into your system and into the project. Yeah. So now we're going to go here. Again, I'm going to type in Rentman. I'm going to choose Rentman as our client right here, and it directly populates that with all the relevant information right here. If there's a specific contact person that you will be operating with for this specific project, you can choose them right here, or if they're not added into the system yet, you can just add them right here as well. Yeah. Then, as I said, you can enter in a location. As I am working with a project template here, this was already pre-populated. Again, this gives me information about the venue, and it also directly gives me some visual aid on where this will be happening. You know, if you have 6 Marriotts in a single town and you're trying to figure out which Marriott am I going to, then this can be quite helpful in making sure that everybody knows that you're going to the right one. Yeah. Moving a little bit further down here, we have our section, which I would say is mostly about communication. We have our files, nodes, and tasks section. Now, files, I believe that's pretty straightforward. Here, if you have any project-based files, you can easily attach them to the project, make them available to your team, and make sure that they can also access them when they're out on site. With regards to notes, if you're maybe on the phone with the client, they give you some details and you want to make sure you record them for your team, you can easily come here, add those notes to the system, and make sure it's visible for everybody else as well. Yeah? And then we have a tasking system, which is quite interesting. So what you can do here is say there's some smaller errands you need to run to finalize a project, picking up an item, calling somebody, emailing somebody. Then it's as easy as coming here, adding a task to the project, defining what that task is. So I could, for example, say call person XYZ, define who's responsible for this. This could be an individual crew member or the whole team as well. Add some more details and directly confirm that. And the nice thing about RentMan is that we have a built-in notification system. So that means that if a task is assigned to somebody, if a deadline is due, then people will get notified about this right up here. So in a Facebook, Twitter-esque way, we have these notifications popping up right up here. The nice thing is these notifications can be further customized. So if somebody prefers to receive an email or maybe get this notification via RentMan, the RentMan app, which is available for both iOS and Android, this can be chosen right here by changing the settings for the notifications. Yeah, and this is already a quick overview of the general tab right here. Now, from here, we want to take a look at a time schedule. Now, in the time schedule, in a project, we can define what is happening within this project at any given point in time. Now, again, we're working with a project template here, which is why this is pre-populated. If you might be going into your project and it's empty, well, you've probably started with a blank project. There's no pre-entered information in there. Now in here, there's two main times I briefly want to cover, the so-called usage and planning period, which are usually part of every project. And the usage period, that's essentially your billable period of time. So the time that you enter in here, that's the time that you will be charging your client for. And the planning period, that's the moment from when your equipment becomes unavailable until it is available again. Yeah, you might be prepping a few days in advance, you might be loading in your truck. Obviously, this is going to be a little bit longer. So for example, in this case, you can see that we're starting at 12 o'clock here, while we're only starting to charge our client from 8 p.m. right here. Yeah, so your planning period would typically be longer if you're starting to prep your gear a little bit earlier. So from the moment you pull your gear to the moment it is back in, that's what your planning period defines. Yeah, whereas the usage period, that's really just for your billable period of time. Now, building on that, you can really just stick with those two. However, if you want to plan out your project a little bit better, you can then just click on Add a Time right here in the top right corner, and then build on what you've already added. So for example, in this case, my project template is giving me logistics times, setup times, more specific times for my first production day and second production day, and then a breakdown time as well. And you can easily do this by just clicking on Add a Time, defining what this time is, so it's easily changeable, and then also defining when exactly that is happening. Yeah, and the nice thing is I would highly recommend planning out your project right here, because then you have a central place where you can easily access all this information. And the nice thing is you can later on also connect your labor to these times that you've previously entered into the time schedule. So what I mean by that is you can see here that we have some linked things. So for example, if I went right here and I, for example, went and added in a prep time, I could then later on, when I'm planning my labor, say, okay, I need 2 stagehands to help me with my prep. So I connect my stagehands to this prep time that I've already added in the time schedule. And later on, if maybe the prep time changes from say 8 p.m. to say 6 p.m., I only have to change it here. So let's, for example, go with 6 p.m. here, and then it would directly adjust the labor times for my crew over here as well. So you don't have to make a change in 1-2 places. You only have to make a change in a single place, and everything is updated across the board. Yeah. So again, plan your project out as limited or as extensive as you want it to be. And then one more thing I would like to cover here is the concept of sub-projects. Now, sub-projects in RentMan are a way for you to take big projects and split them up into multiple smaller pieces. And this can be done by just going up here, clicking on this little arrow that we have, and then we can directly see that we have one project right here as well. And we're going to stick with this for today, but you do have the ability to essentially take a project, for example, this music festival, and use it as an umbrella to contain a lot of other things. So for example, if you have a project with multiple stages, if you have a corporate event, maybe with a general session and a bunch of breakouts, or maybe a tour which has multiple stops, instead of having to shove everything into a single project, you can just take it, add sub-projects to it, and then do more specific planning per sub-project. Yeah. In the end, what this allows you to do is be more structured, have the information you need into each individual sub-project, and you can really have as many sub-projects as you want. So you could, for example, have tour stop 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Per tour stop, you can define what equipment is needed, what labor is needed, because obviously that might differ quite significantly between these different sub-projects based on location. Yeah. The nice thing about sub-project is that you can also quote and invoice them separately or all of them together if you have the quoting and invoicing enabled. So it's a quite nice way to, you know, be a little bit more flexible on the reporting side as well. Yeah. But as I said, for today, we're going to be focusing on a single project, and to quickly move on here, we're going to go take a look at equipment. Now, how does equipment planning work in RentMan? Well, first of all, let's take a look at the interface. On the left side, we can have our inventory and the way that we have previously set it up in our equipment section over here. So again, import your inventory, combine it in packages, do all that good stuff. And once you've set it up, it will be visible right here to the left side and is now available for booking on the project, which we can see on the right side. Again, as a reminder, I'm using a project template here, which is why my information is pre-populated. And essentially, when you're setting up a project, you usually start off in RentMan by adding equipment groups into the system. So for example, PA, front of house, these are equipment groups that have been added into the system already, just because I'm using a project template. Now, equipment groups are a way for you to categorize your equipment in a project, so it's not just one long list of gear. Yeah, so into my PA, I've added my PA. Into front of house, I add whatever items I need in my front of house. And then in my mics, I've added whatever is needed right here. If I now realize, hey, you know, I actually need another drum mic kit right here, I could just select whatever category I want to add something in. So my equipment group right here, I could search for the item that I need. Let's say my drum mic kit. I can easily search for it, find it, and then it's as easy as just double clicking on it and adding it right into the project and thereby assigning it to the project. Yeah, so that's an easy way to add equipment. You can see there's also a little quantity column right here. Here I could also directly define how many of each item I need to add into this project. Yeah. Okay, so we've added equipment into our project. Let's take a closer look at how kits and cases look like here. Again, we covered those earlier. So for example, if I now wanted to see what I've added by adding in a drum mic kit into the system, I can easily just open up my drum mic kit and I can directly see all of the different items that I've added into this project already. Yeah. Again, what matters here as well is the equipment availability timeline, because quite obviously, when we're planning equipment into a project, we want to know if something is available or not. Now, if I want to make sure that something is available, I can just select an item. Let's, for example, say we want to go with a DJ booth right here. So I select the item. I quickly head up here. And again, I have this timeline button that we were looking at earlier already. So I'll select that. I'll unselect my drum mic kit because we don't need this right now. And then again, just like in the equipment timeline before, I can now directly see if I have this item available, how many I have available, and also, of course, the respective time that I'm checking right here. So for us, that's the 20th of October until the start of the 23rd October. Yeah. To follow up on this example, let's, for example, say we need one of those DJ booths on this. So I'll pick my DJ gear category right here. I'll add in my DJ booth, and then we can directly see what happens to this as well. So if I select my DJ booth right here, I can now see that instead of having 2 available, I now only have 1 available, because 1 is already planned on our music festival during the period of time of this music festival. Yeah. Okay. So this is pretty much adding equipment into a project. Don't worry, you don't need to have this equipment availability timeline open at all times. If you may be working on a 11, 13-inch laptop, you know, it might be eating up too much space. Because if we go in here and we, for example, increase the quantity quite dramatically, let's say we need, you know, 5 DJ booths right here. So if you increase the quantity, so if you essentially create a shortage, RentMan will directly tell you about this. You are able to identify shortages right away, and then you can directly know, well, I might have to book an alternative, I might have to subrent this item, I might just have to take action to make sure that this project can move ahead. Yeah. Okay. One more thing here that I like to show is if we click on the details button right here, just like before in the equipment module, we can look at relevant information about this item that we have selected. This is a little bit more advanced now, where we can see the properties of the item. If we have entered these properties into our database, I can see the price related to it. And then what I really like here about this is that I can directly see information about the total project as well. So while I'm building out my project, Rentman already gives me ideas what the weight is, what the volume is. So if you've entered this data into the system associated with your inventory, then Rentman will be doing the work for you. So you can already make more educated decisions on what kind of trucking am I going to need, what kind of power generators am I going to need. All that stuff will be visible right here and can, for example, also be printed on packing lists if necessary. So before we move on to plan our labor on this project, one thing that I want to point out, which is obviously one of the most important things, not just in Rentman, but pretty much in any system you're using, is to save your project. As you can see, I haven't really done this yet, which is why the project name has not been adjusted yet. So I'm going to go over here to the right side, click on Save, and this will directly save my project. Be aware that there's also some shortcuts. So for example, I could also quickly hit Alt-S to save the project. All those shortcuts are actually visible right up here. So if you go here and then click on Show Hide Shortcuts, you can see which key combinations you can use to essentially speed up your workflow just a little bit more. Yeah. But for now, we have finalized planning equipment on our project. We schedule out our equipment of this, on this project, which is essentially what most of this webinar is about. But now we're going to move on to crew and transport. And we're going to talk a little bit more about scheduling the labor required on this project. Now, again, we're using a template, which is why this is pre-filled. But essentially, what we can do right here is we can define the types of labor required. Be aware that what we do here is we do not define the people that we would like to plan. So we don't plan Tim or Parker on a project, but rather what we do is we define that we need a light tech. We define that we need a sound tech, a stagehand. So we define the types of labor that we call functions, and then we define when these types of labor are required. Now, looking at this view here, similar to equipment on the left side, we have our selection of available types of labor, tech, system engineer, stagehand, and so on. Again, this is fully customizable when you're setting up your account. And then on the right side, we can see what types of labor we've already planned on this project during the time of this project. Now, these types of labor over here can be set up by you. It's as easy as going right here, clicking on the plus button, and then choosing if you would like to add a new default function, so a new default type of labor available for booking right here. And if I were to do that, I would directly be able to now add information about this specific function into the system. So for example, I can directly see that I can define what the external name for this type of labor is, for this function is, the internal name, and then if we have the quoting option activated right here, we can also directly see that we can define a price, so we could directly define what the hourly rate and fixed rate for this would be, and for example, if we're going to tax this or not. Yeah. So set up your labor on the left side right here. Set up your types of transport as well, if that's what you're looking to do. If you're also going to charge your client for the transport that you're going to provide, that could be regional transport and so on. So you can set these up right here, and then we can plan them on the project. And again, what we come back to here is the ability in Rentman to group things. So essentially to categorize the labor required. Now we can see an example of this here already. We have a logistics category, we have a setup category, a production day category. So essentially the categorization here is used to define what is required in terms of labor at what point in time. And this comes back to one thing that I mentioned earlier. If you remember, in the time schedule, we had quickly defined, for example, when the setup is required, and we had also added our custom time, which in this case was our prep time. Now let's, for example, say I would like to schedule some labor on the prep time. To do that, I would go to crew and transport. I would simply select that I would like to add a new category, which in this case is going to be prep. So I select my function group. I now call this prep as well to stay consistent. And now I mentioned I can make a connection between those two. I can make a connection between the time schedule and the labor portion. And to do that, I can now just come here, pick when the usage period is happening. And then from my pre-established time schedule, I can now directly choose here that I would like to associate the prep category in crew and transport to my prep time in the time schedule. So I'm making this connection. Yeah? So I'm going to choose that right here, start prep until end prep, apply that, save it, and now you can directly see here that this prep time, 6 p.m. until 2 a.m. right here equals the prep time that I've previously added down here, 6 p.m. until 2 a.m. Yeah. If that was to change, let's for example say this is 7 p.m. instead of 6 p.m. I'm just quickly going to change that, save it, and then if I head back here, you're going to see the result of that now my 6 p.m. time for prep has changed to 7 p.m. right here. Yeah? So an easy way for you not having to adjust it right here and here, you make one change in the time schedule, and if this connection has been built, everything will be updated across the board. Yeah. Now, if I would like to define, what kind of labor is required during the prep time, I would just select the prep category and say, hey, I need 2 of my techs to help me here. Just like adding equipment, I can just double click or just hit the quantity column and then define what is needed, say 2, hit enter, and then they're directly added into the project. Yeah. Okay. Now, moving on from here, we can take a closer look at the additional costs section. So what I want to do here is just briefly cover this. I think this is pretty self-explanatory. For example, if there was a hotel stay involved for this, if there's travel expenses that need to be recorded, you can easily just click the add button right here, add whatever is needed into the project, and record those as well. Yeah. And now we're going to the final stretch of this project, which is the financial tab. Please be aware that the actual quoting and invoicing portion of this is an optional addition. You can also just go with scheduling the equipment without wanting to actually quote. If you're really just looking for a software to, check if equipment is available or not, you can go with equipment scheduling. If you also want to say quotes, if you also want to, send quotes and invoices, then adding that quotation option to your Rentman package is definitely a good idea. Yeah. So we're going to start off by clicking on financial right here, and then Rentman gives us a really nice breakdown really of everything that's going to happen or happening from a financial perspective in this project. And generally speaking, Rentman breaks down a project into 5 main categories. Those are rental items, sales items if those have been planned, crew transport if necessary if you've planned that, and then also others really additional costs. Yeah. Now in here you can see the estimated costs, your planned costs. So if you've actually planned staff, then those would be popping up right here, and then actually your actual costs as well. And then you can also directly see right here what the total revenue for this project is, if you have given any discounts or if you want to do that. And you can also directly see what the overall margin for this project is going to be. This can be as a euro/dollar amount, or you could also directly see it as your percentage right here to evaluate if this is what you want to work with. Yeah. Then we have everything totaled up over here. You can choose a discount on a group level or on a general project level. You have your total before tax. Tax rate can be chosen right here. And then, of course, you have your total including tax down here, which will then also, of course, be displayed on your quote if you're going to generate that. Now, before we generate your quote, there is always the question, do I want to display my terms and conditions on this document as well? That is a possibility. So if your client signs the quote, they directly accept the terms and conditions as well. These terms and conditions, which are visible down here, can be set up under configuration and can then be displayed directly on your quote as well. So the clients are directly aware, what they're signing here. Now, if we're going to now go ahead and generate a quotation, it's as easy as heading up here, choosing what kind of document I want to generate. That could be a quote, an invoice, or a contract if we're at the stage, if that is necessary. For now, we're going to stick with a quote, so I'm going to click on Add Quotation. Looks like I didn't save yet, so I'm going to do that. And now it's going to take all of the information that we had previously added into this project. Again, we were using a project template, which is why this is a lot easier for us. Again, another reminder here that this is going to save you a lot of time. And now we can first of all double check the information, client, details. If we had sub-projects, we could now define if we would like to quote all of them together or maybe separately. And then we can also add a personal document text down here. Hey, thank you very much for your business, and so on. And then as a next step, we click on generate. And then there's one more step that we have to take here, which is rather essential. What we can now choose here are the letterhead and template. Now, I probably don't have to explain what a letterhead is. Essentially, a branded PDF that you would upload into Rentman with your header, your footer, your logo, your branding in general, that will be used as a background for most of the documents that you're going to generate in the system. Yeah, something very simple to do, just upload it. You can find the settings for this under configuration. The template, however, that's a little bit more Rentman specific. And what we can do here essentially is choose how much information from this project that we have just now created do we want to display to our client, because our client might want to see some information, some clients want to see all of the information. So you do have the flexibility in Rentman to set up your own templates. Yeah? We have a built-in template editor, and without really requiring any coding background, you can go into this template editor, which again you can find under configuration, and completely customize your templates to your liking. Let me give an example of that. So we're going to start with the compact template right here. I'm going to generate this document now, and then we're going to give this a moment, and RentMan should spit out the document right away. There we go, and we have our first variation of this quotation for this project. And we can see, if we scroll down, we have some pretty relevant details on here, but as the name already says, it is rather compact. Yeah, it doesn't give us the line items, it doesn't really give a whole lot of information, and this might be great for some of our clients, but let's, for example, assume that they want to see some more information. So the easiest thing we can do now is click on Regenerate, pick another template. Let's, for example, say I want to have a more extended template right here, and then either create a new document or override the existing one. And then it's directly going to regenerate this document in a more extensive view and show us a, well, more extensive quote, which our client might like more. And you can directly see what I'm referring to here. You can see our categories that we have created, but now additionally, all the individual items that we had added, comments that were added to it. So it's a very extensive view. And again, you know, no manual changes are required here. You don't have to type something in or take something out. It's as easy as setting up templates that work for your business and then choosing those templates whenever you know, you're working with a specific client that wants to have a specific view. Now we've generated our document, let's go ahead and actually send it to our client. So we're gonna quickly take a look at it. It's looking good. We can also include our digital signature button down here and then directly send it. And sending a document from RentMan, there's two main ways. Either you can download the document and maybe send it from your personal Outlook if that's what you want to do, or you can also just click on email. We have a very normal email interface right here where you can type in your email body and directly send it out from within the system to your client. In any case, your client is going to receive this document. They have the ability to look at it, obviously, you know, check if they like the offer, and if they're okay with it, the last thing they can do is just go down here, click on this little digital signature button, which is then going to redirect them to your personal signature page where they can directly sign the document, enter their information, add any comments if required. And once the document has been signed, a signed copy of this document will directly be sent to your client. A signed copy of this document will directly be sent to you. And the nice thing is you can find all of those documents, signed or not, right here. If you go back to your project, in the General tab as well, right down here under Files. So any relevant file that you create within the project or that you attach will be found right down here in your file overview. Yeah. Now we finalized the financial aspect of this. Let's talk a little bit about subrenting equipment. Now we do have this little subrental option right here. And let's, for example, assume that some of the equipment that we had added previously, we didn't actually have and we needed to subrent. Now let's head back to equipment right here. And it's going to load this for us. And now we can directly see that one of the items we had actually added down here isn't actually available. And that's the DJ booth that I had overplanned earlier. And as we had not created any subrentals yet, we're going to focus on that now. Now, the way that subrentals work in RentMan is that if you're short on equipment or you simply don't own the equipment, but you just have it in your database so that whenever you plan it, RentMan notifies you and says, hey, you don't have it, you can now go ahead and actually create a subrental request and directly send this to your client. So the way this works is you would select the item or multiple items at the same time, and then simply go up here, click on the three-dot button, and then from here you have the ability to click on subrent shortages, and this allows you to directly create a digital subrental request within RentMan, and then directly send this digital subrental request from within the system to your preferred supplier. Yeah? We're not going to run through the whole process today, but essentially there's two ways you can create a subrental request. You can either create a PDF document. This PDF document can be sent by email, just like the quote, from within the system to your supplier. Your supplier would have to get back to you and say, hey, listen, we can do this or not. And then we also have the ability for you to send the subrental request through the RentMan network. That's a little network that connects all RentMan clients. If you know another user using RentMan and you know their account name, that's not something that we can give out, that's something that you would have to inquire about. Then you could directly send a digital request from your RentMan account to theirs. They can see what equipment you need, They can directly see if they have it available or not, and they can directly give you an indication if this is possible for them or not. Yeah. So that is the subrental tab. right here. Once you've realized those subrentals, they're going to be listed right here. And then we have our history log. Now, this is a very recent addition to Rentman, so also very new to me. But essentially, the history log is a great way for you to have an idea, who has done what work in this project at what point in time. Now, if I go right here, I can see that I have a save in here. So if I select this to get a little bit more information about it, this is going to give me a very extensive view on what has been done in which tab in this project. So for example, I can see that I added my prep time earlier. I can also see that I added all these things earlier already. And these were primarily added because I started with a project template, but you can, for example, see I can see my project, my sub-project information, everything that is really necessary will be listed right here. So if something goes wrong, if something is deleted, if something doesn't make sense, and if somebody doesn't know why a certain thing happened to a project, this is the place for you to come in and directly track that information and understand a little bit better what happened to a project. Now with that, we're going to finalize our look at the project creation / quoting process within Rentman, and of course scheduling our equipment on the project. And we're going to move on and look at a few more modules that we haven't covered yet that I just still want to briefly explain to make sure that everybody has a good understanding of the rest of these menu options on the left side right here. Now we're going to start off with the dashboard. Now the dashboard is a customizable part of Rentman where depending on the access to modules that you have, you can directly see information and further customize this. So first of all, you can have one or multiple dashboards with different types of information. You could maybe have a personal dashboard and maybe a financial dashboard where you only see all the financial information. And then per dashboard, it's pretty straightforward to customize this, so you can easily see that mine is a little bit more limited here. I can see my open invoices, my revenue, and my tasks. If I think that I don't really need the revenue right now because it's not really displaying me any information, I simply need to click on Edit Dashboard over here, and then I could easily take widgets out, increase or decrease their sizing if maybe this is not looking like I want it to look. And then I can also add additional widgets. So that's as easy as going down here, clicking on Add Widgets, and then choosing from our selection, which in this case is a little bit more limited because this package of Rentman is a little bit more limited, what kind of information we would like to display. Yeah, so an easy way for you to create an overview that displays all the information that you want. So when you come into the shop in the morning and you want to see, what's happening, you can directly see that right here. Now on top of that, we also have a personal schedule module. This personal schedule module is really just for each individual crew member to see, whatever they need to see. So for example, if I go back to August right here, I can see all of my projects. So this is another place where you can see all of the projects apart from the projects module. But this is also a place where I could, for example, if I select a date, enter in appointments, start new projects. So this is really a place where I can manage all of these things as well. Yeah. On top of that, this is also the place where you could directly synchronize your own calendar with Rentman. So if you prefer using Google Calendar or your iCalendar to see all of your projects, that's not a problem. Just go up here on the right side, click on Synchronize with your own calendar, and then you directly get your iCal streams or your CalDAV streams to copy paste them into your calendar of choice. Yeah. Now for today, I believe that we have finalized our look at Rentman. I would definitely encourage you to go to our website, rentman.io, to create your own free trial. This trial runs for 30 days. It's a great opportunity for you just to play around a little bit with the software, get used to it, see if it's a good fit for you. And obviously when signing up, you can also pick and choose what kind of parts you want with Rentman. As I said, today we were looking at equipment scheduling and quoting. We have a few more things that you can look at. You could also create your own packages that maybe include staffing, inventory tracking. But these kind of things, if you're interested in watching other videos, you can just go to our YouTube channel or website. You will be able to find all the content right there. And for example, learn a little bit more about the inventory tracking parts and so on. If you do have any questions about this, feel free to give us a call. You can find the information to call us or email us in the video description on our website. And then I would like to say thank you for joining today. And we're looking forward to working with you and getting your Rentman account set up in the near future. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.